Hello, and welcome to Ravenwoods. On today's episode, we have short horror stories that were found on the internet. Most of these are from Reddit. This New Old House, written by Bat Out of Hell 821. We bought an old house, my boyfriend and I. He's in charge of the new construction, converting the kitchen into the master bedroom, for instance, while I'm on wallpaper removal duty. The previous owner papered every wall and ceiling. Removing it is brutal, but oddly satisfying. The best feeling is that getting a long peel, similar to your skin when you have like a peeling from a sunburn. I don't know about you, but I kind of make a game out of the peeling, on the hunt for the longest piece I can tear before it rips in half. Under a corner section of paper in every room, there was a person's name and a date. One night, curiosity got the best of me, and so I decided to Google one of the names and dates. And I discovered the person was actually a missing person, and the missing date matched the date under the wallpaper. The next day, I made a list of all the names and dates, and sure enough, each name was for a missing person with dates to match. We notified the police, who naturally sent out a crime scene team. I overheard one tech say, "Yep, it's human." Human? What's human? Ma'am, where's the material you've removed from the walls already? This isn't wallpaper you are removing. And the next story comes from Horror in Pure Form. I hate it when my brother Charlie goes away. I hate it when my brother Charlie has to go away. My parents constantly try to explain to me how sick he is, that I'm lucky for having a brain where all the chemicals flow properly to their destinations, like undammed rivers. When I complain about how bored I am, without a little brother to play with, they try to make me feel bad by pointing out that his boredom likely surpasses mine, considering that he is confined to a dark room in an institution. I always beg for them to give him at least one last chance. Of course, they did it first. Charlie's been back home several times, each shorter in duration than the last. Every time without fail, it all starts again. The neighborhood cats with eyes gorged out start showing up in his toy box. My dad's razors are found dropped on the baby slide in the park across the street. Mom's vitamins are replaced by bits of dishwasher tablets. My parents are hesitant now, using the last chances sparingly. They say his disorder makes him charming, makes it easy for him to fake normalcy, and to trick the doctors who care for him into thinking he's ready for rehabilitation. That I will just have to put up with my boredom if it means staying safe from him. I hate it when Charlie goes away. It makes me have to pretend to be good until he comes back. The next story is called Guardians by Dark Alligator. He awoke to the huge, insect-like creatures looming over his bed and screamed his lungs out. They hastily left the room, and he stayed up all night, shaking and wondering if it had been a bad dream. The next morning there was a tap on the door. Gathering his courage, he opened it to see a gently placed plate full of food for breakfast on the floor. The creatures then retreated to a safe distance. Bewildered, he accepted the gift. The creatures chittered excitedly. This happened every day for weeks. At first he was worried they were fattening him up, but after a particularly greasy breakfast left him clutching his chest from heartburn, they were replaced with fresh fruit on his plate. As well as cooking, they poured hot steamy baths for him, and even tucked him in when he went to bed. It was bizarre. One night he awoke to gunshots and screaming. He raced downstairs to find a decapitated burglar being devoured by the insects. He was sickened, but disposed of the remains as best he could. He knew that they had just been protecting him. One morning the creatures wouldn't let him leave his room. He laid down, confused, but trusting, as they ushered him back into bed. Whatever their motives, they weren't going to hurt him. Hours later, a burning pain spread throughout his body. It was like his stomach was filled with razor wire. The insects chittered as he spasmed and moaned. It was only then, when he felt terrible squirming beneath his skin, and he realized the insects hadn't been protecting him. They had been protecting the eggs of their young. Number 4, Seeing Red by Zenri Howe. Everyone loves the first day of school, right? New year, new classes, new friends. It's a day full of potential and hope, before all the dreary depressions of reality show up and ruin all the fun. I like the first day of school for a different reason, though. You see, I have sort of a power. When I look at people, I can sort of sense an aura around them, a colored outline based on how long the person has to live. Most everyone I meet around my age is surrounded by a solid green hue, which means they have plenty of time to live. A fair amount of them have a yellowish orangish tinge to their auras, which tends to mean they'll eventually die in a car crash or some other type of tragedy. Anything that would take a person before their time, as they say. The real fun is when auras venture into the red, into the spectrum. Every now and then, I'll see someone who's basically a walking stoplight. Those are the ones who get murdered or kill themselves. It's such a rush to see them, and I know their time is numbered. With that in mind, I always get to class very early so I could scout out the classmates' fates. The first kid who walked in was basically radiating red. I chuckled to myself, too damn bad, bro. But as I kept walking in, they all had the same intense glow. I finally caught a glimpse of my own red-tinted reflection in the window, but I was too stunned to move. Our professor then stepped in and locked the door. His aura was a sickening shade of green. Timekeeper by Gridster 2. He had been given the watch on his 10th birthday. It was an ordinary gray plastic wristwatch in every aspect, except for the fact that it was counting down. That is all the time you have left in the world, son. Use it wisely. And indeed he did. As the watch ticked away, the boy, now a man, lived his life to the fullest. He climbed mountains and swam in oceans. He talked and laughed and lived and loved. The man was never afraid, for he knew exactly how much time he had left. Eventually, the watch began its final countdown. The old man stood looking over everything he'd done, everything he'd built. 5. He shook the hands with his old business partner, the man who had long been his friend and confidant. 4. His dog came in and licked his hand, earning a pat on the head for its companionship. 3. He hugged his son, knowing that he had been a good father. 2. He kissed his wife on the forehead one last time. 1. The old man smiled and closed his eyes. Then, nothing happened. The watch beeped once and turned off. The man stood, standing there, very much alive. You would think that in the moment he would have been overjoyed. Instead, for the first time in his life, the man was frightened. There's no reason to be afraid. Written by Whoever Fights Monster. When my sister Betsy and I were kids, our family lived for a while in a charming old farmhouse. We loved exploring its dusty corners and climbing the apple tree in the backyard. But our favorite thing was the ghost. We called her Mother because she seemed so kind and nurturing. Some mornings Betsy and I would wake up, and on our nightstands we'd find a cup that hadn't been there the night before. Mother had left them there, worried that we might get thirsty during the night. She just wanted to take care of us. Among the house's original furnishings was an old antique wooden chair, which we kept against the back wall of the living room. Whenever we were preoccupied watching TV or playing a game, Mother would inch that chair forward, across the room, towards us. Sometimes she'd manage to move it all the way to the center of the room. We always felt sad putting it back against the wall. Mother just wanted to be near us. Years later, long after we'd moved out, I found an old newspaper article about the farmhouse's original occupant, a widow. She'd murdered her 2 children by giving them each a cup of poisoned milk before bed, and then she had hung herself. The article included a photo of the farmhouse living room with a woman's body hanging from a beam. Beneath her, knocked over, was that old wooden chair, placed exactly in the center of the room. And that's all for this episode. I'd like to thank the writers for submitting their short stories to Reddit. That way I can read them and share them with other people. And if you like this sort of content, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for visiting, and have a wonderful day. Bye.